Let's be direct. You're not prepared yet, and deep down, you're aware of it. This isn't meant as blame, but as an undeniable truth that has been following you quietly for years. That restlessness you feel, that hollow space that lingers even when life seems fine, isn't meaningless anxiety. It's a signal, a message from life itself, reminding you that something inside you is waiting to shift. Think of it as the universe sharpening the blade before placing it in your hands. Have you ever noticed that right before something major unfolds, everything seems to collapse? Relationships fracture, health falters, chances vanish, motivation dries up. It feels like regression, but in reality, it's purification. You're being stripped of what you're not so you can step into what you are meant to be. This isn't punishment. It's training. Here lies the truth most people ignore. Life doesn't bestow true gifts on a person who hasn't been refined within. It's not about how hard you work or how lucky you are. It's about whether you've been transformed, a transformation you cannot pretend, because it's not enough to merely want something. You must become someone able to hold it. CarlJung saw this without flinching. When the unconscious decides it's time, it doesn't politely ask. It hurls you into disorder, because disorder is the tongue of the soul when it's rewriting itself. That sudden breakup, the job loss you couldn't afford, the betrayal you never saw coming, none were accidents. They were precision surgeries, cutting away rot. Yet you named them injustice. But the real barrier between you and your desires isn't the world, nor society, nor other people. It's the version of you that refuses to release the past. The part that longs for change while clinging to control, that wants to advance but won't surrender comfort, that seeks growth but won't allow something old to die. And yes, die. For something new to emerge, something old must dissolve. Your ego, for example. That inner guardian that once protected you has now become your cage. The ego doesn't crave transformation. It craves improvement without risk. It wants certainty, even if it means stagnation. So when real change knocks, the ego resists. That resistance is what creates suffering. But suffering is not the enemy. It's the doorway. It hurts because you're crossing a threshold. Every threshold between old and new demands a rupture. Did you think you could cross without paying the cost? That silence inside you, that emptiness, it isn't abandonment. It's the pause between collapse and rebuilding. It's the fertile ground left after the fire. And what you plant there can grow stronger than ever, but only if planted with awareness. Because this pause, this interval between what you were and what you will become, is sacred. Here you choose. Will you repeat the past or begin something entirely new? Look inward. What cycles are you repeating? What fears do you still feed? What control do you refuse to release? These are the questions life places before you when preparing you for greatness. If you answer them dishonestly, what you want won't arrive. Not because you don't deserve it, but because you wouldn't yet be capable of holding it. Life never gives you what you simply ask for. It gives you what you embody. And to embody something means to confront everything blocking you from becoming it. That's why hardships aren't punishments. They're preparation. Every disappointment invited you to define boundaries. Every setback offered a chance to choose again with deeper wisdom. Every loss reminded you that nothing outside of you is permanent, and the only real foundation is what you construct within. And while you thought the universe was ignoring you, it was observing, watching whether you acted from your wound or your awareness, from fear or from truth, from rage or from peace. That's the real test. Not how you behave when things go well, but how you respond when everything collapses. That's where your essence is revealed. And if that essence is genuine, Doors open that you never knew existed. Because life doesn't reward the cleverest, strongest, or kindest. It rewards the coherent. The ones who dare to live aligned with their truth, even when no one is looking, especially when no one is looking. Because true transformation is quiet. It doesn't crave applause or validation. It gestates in darkness, solitude, and surrender. And when it finally surfaces, it doesn't argue or justify. It simply exists. So if you find yourself in a place where nothing adds up, where everything feels suspended, where obstacles multiply, don't flee. Don't misinterpret. Look deeper. Because you may be standing in the exact center of the change you once prayed for, only you haven't yet proven that you're ready to sustain it. And here lies the real challenge. How do you act when life grows silent? How do you move when no signs appear? What do you choose when there is no applause? Countless people want to transform their lives, but very few want to transform themselves. They desire a new chapter, but resist closing the old one. They crave the extraordinary, but won't release the familiar. But that's not how it works. The alchemy of change begins when you stop hunting outside for what can only be built inside. When you decide your inner peace outweighs any external prize. When you see clearly that your struggles aren't personal, they're universal. We all walk through this furnace, though many escape before the fire finishes its work. Do you have the courage to remain, to let the ego crumble, so something more authentic can rise? Because if you do, life will recognize it. And then you won't chase change. Change will flow toward you, because it has no other option. And here is the paradox. The moment you no longer need it to come, it arrives. Because you've become someone who doesn't depend on outcomes, but resonates with the process. And that is what life has been waiting for all along. Now you see, you're not being punished, you're being prepared. The question is, are you ready for the test? And deeper still, there's a difference between being tested and being revealed. Because when life shakes you, it isn't sculpting you from the outside. It is exposing what already exists inside but remained hidden. That's why many believe they're being broken, when really they're being unmasked. What surfaces may not be flattering. Insecurity, need for approval, dependence, arrogance masked as confidence, fear dressed as caution. None of this is new. It was always there. Under pressure, you just can't conceal it anymore. Remember, pressure doesn't create cracks, it reveals them. And once revealed, you cannot pretend they're invisible. You must either face them or continue treating everything happens for a reason as a hollow cliché. The deeper truth is this. Challenges don't arrive to test your strength, but to cleanse your vision. You don't need greater force. You need greater clarity. Clarity about the habits you repeat without thinking, the stories you carry from childhood, the masks you still wear to avoid truth. This is where the shadow comes in. That hidden self you silence to be accepted, to be loved, to belong. Jung taught that enlightenment doesn't come by imagining light, but by making the darkness conscious. The trials you endure are lamps, forcing you to gaze at what you've long avoided. Why do so many never change, even when their lives demand it? Because they'd rather remain broken in the familiar than healed in the unknown. The ego clings to pain because at least it knows it. But real transformation never happens within the known. It happens in the leap, and to leap, you must let go. Letting go isn't surrender in weakness, it's trust. It's saying to life, I may not control this, but I trust that it has meaning. And that trust isn't blind belief. It is the wisdom that comes when you look back and realize everything you lost was exactly what you needed to lose. Every fall, every heartbreak, every silence was a meeting with a part of yourself you had yet to discover. Awakening isn't always a mystical flash. Sometimes it's a quiet afternoon where you break down in your car, realizing you can't keep pretending nothing stirs inside you. It's raw, painful, and real, but only the real transforms. Everything else is spiritual entertainment, and life isn't here to amuse you. It's here to awaken you, again and again, until you see that what you search for has always been within, buried beneath fear, pride, and the need for control. Do you want a new reality? Then understand this. The price is your old self. You can't bring it along, not because it was bad, but because it was incomplete, built on survival, not truth. And here lies the next realization. Survival is not life. The ego survives. The soul lives. As long as your choices come from avoidance of pain, desire to please, or need for control, you'll remain in survival. But when you choose to act from your truth, with no guarantees, no outcomes promised, life begins. So, when life tests you, the most powerful response isn't resistance or endurance. It's listening. Every trial carries a message, not in words, but encrypted in what hurts. What irritates you most is what you must examine. What terrifies you is what you must confront. Pain isn't the issue, the blindness to its message is. As long as you label trials as unfair, you'll miss the gift within them. You're not being punished. You're being asked to remember who you are beneath the masks. Life doesn't want you tougher, it wants you truthful. Because from truth comes authentic power, the kind that doesn't demand recognition, but simply radiates. That's the essence of transformation. It's not about crafting a new version of yourself. It's about allowing the self that has always been there, beneath conditioning, to emerge. Are you ready to allow it? That decision alone marks whether you can hold what you've been asking for. Remember, you're not defined by what happens to you, but by how you respond. And when your response flows from truth rather than fear, life reflects accordingly, because life has always been a mirror. This is only the beginning. Let's go further. What if the one stopping you isn't the universe but yourself? Not from fear of failure, but from fear of success. Strange, but real. There's a part of you that doesn't fear falling. It fears shining. Because shining means responsibility. Because manifesting what you long for means losing the cover of excuses. It means stepping out fully. Here the mind plays its role. The constant factory of explanations, of convincing stories that make you believe you moving forward, while in truth you recircling, busy, learning, preparing endlessly, yet not moving closer to what you actually want. This is the trap of infinite preparation, the excuse of, I'm not ready yet, but you'll never be ready for the unknown. True readiness is not completed before the leap. It awakens during the fall. The mind protects, but it also paralyzes. Its job isn't your happiness, it's your safety. Even if that safety is a gilded cage. So you repeat. Better to stay with the familiar pain. Better to wait. Better not to risk. And life watches quietly, waiting for you to release the rope. Because until you let go, no miracle can reach you. Here is the hard truth. Inner change isn't measured by intentions, but by choices. Not by what you desire, but by what you're willing to leave behind. You can't keep your old identity and expect a new life. You can't want a new reality while clinging to your old role within it. Many want change without changing themselves. That is the most refined form of self-sabotage. You think you're walking forward, but your luggage is full of past weight, old beliefs, automatic defenses, hunger for drama, obsession with control. What happens if you drag that into your future? You simply repeat the past with new characters, new scenes, but the same pattern. Life operates not by the clock, but by consciousness. When you fail to awaken, cycles repeat. The same heartbreaks, same conflicts, same endings. The question is never, why is this happening to me? But why is this happening again? The moment you awaken, even slightly, you realize you cannot go back. Awakening is irreversible. It may disorient, hurt, unsettle, but once you've seen, you can't unsee. Old habits no longer fit. Old illusions no longer comfort. And though that feels unsettling, it is also liberation. Because what awakens in you is a relentless hunger for truth and a refusal to live by lies, even lies you told yourself. But here comes the deeper grief, the mourning of your identity. To step into who you are meant to be, you must say farewell to who you once thought you were. Not just behaviors, but the image you carefully built for survival and acceptance. You'll have to admit that the strength you showed was often just a mask. That many things you defended fiercely were shields for vulnerability. That's painful, but it's medicine. Because as illusions dissolve, authenticity has room to breathe. And when authenticity awakens, life begins to respond. Not because you became flawless, but because you became real, human, honest, ready to grow from within, not from the shell. At that point, you no longer chase signs or reassurance. You don't need certainty because you know. You've become someone who trusts the step without seeing the whole road. Someone who listens to intuition without bargaining. That is the real transformation. Living from surrender, not as defeat, but as wisdom. For true surrender doesn't quit, it aligns. Life doesn't answer your wishes, it answers your vibration. When your energy stops being divided between longing and fear, between words and actions, life mirrors you coherently. And in that reflection, everything changes. So here you stand, at the edge, facing your most honest self. The question isn't if you'll succeed. The question is whether you'll dare to release who you were, to become who you're meant to be. The hardest part isn't transformation. It's abandoning the excuses. Life shifts not with dreams, but with decisions. And the time to decide isn't tomorrow. It's now. Because now is the only space where you're free. But don't mistake this for impulsive leaps. True change arrives when your soul whispers enough. Enough chasing validation. Enough dwelling in old pain. Enough postponing your truth. When that moment comes, it's not loud. It's calm, but undeniable. And when you act from it, clarity follows. The sign you've been waiting for is not out there. It's you. Because life doesn't listen to words. It watches your steps. And here lies the revelation. Everything you long for already exists. It's alive in another version of you. The one who made different choices, who stopped repeating patterns, who didn't bargain with authenticity. That version is real. Do you want it? Then embody it. Think, breathe, and decide like it. Because the secret isn't T forcing the future. It's S becoming the person for whom that future is inevitable. Do it. Not from pressure or fear. Not to prove anything. Do it for that part of you that knows you came here not just to survive, but to burn bright with authenticity. That part doesn't need applause. It's already awake. It only waits for you to rise. And if you've read this far, take this moment to declare it. Say it. I am ready to become who I've always been. Not as proof to anyone, but as a reminder to yourself. The shift has already begun. So when life falls apart again, and it will, don't run. Breathe. Watch. Because it might not be your ending at all. It might be the exact beginning of your real story. On the other side awaits the version of you who no longer hides, no longer escapes, no longer waits. The one who simply is, creates, and lives, and life is already watching.